we leave the floor to our chairman. Are we online? Yes, we are. Good morning to you all. I would like to extend my greetings and my thanks to all those who are here and those who are connected online. There are many people here in person, and this is a very good signal. I don't want to steal too much of your time because there is plenty to hear from, and all these speeches will be delivered across the world, and this afternoon we'll also have connections from Australia and United States. LIUC is a small niche university, a center of excellence, and it is with great pleasure that we will be celebrating the 30th anniversary since its establishment. It was established thanks to corporations, manufacturing companies in the area of Varesotto and Brianza, and it is well established in Italy and with a strong inclination towards internationalization. I also would like to thank Mrs. Gervasoni and Mrs. Angelucci and Mr. Visconti. My expectation in a fluid and a tormented world like the one we are living today is to try and understand what is the challenge of the next 30 years. Or it would be enough for me to understand what is the competitive challenge within the end of the year. My expectations are very limited, and I will definitely learn plenty of things from the speakers who will be taking the floor during the round tables, which account for the core of this event. Thank you very much, and I wish you all fruitful proceedings. Thank you very much. Very well. My greetings too. I jotted down some notes based on what I introduced some months ago. I've attended very many events, and so to renew my presentations, I decided to refer to a fairy tale. The fairy tale of the child who used small stones to find his way back to his home. And immediately I went to my 2017 presentation when I used a book by Norman, Management for Growth, and Norman wrote, in this period of great changes, the main problem for organizations is to renew themselves, and this book contributes to the explanation of change mechanisms. This book was published in 1987. This bears witness to the fact that there have always been tensions in change management, and of course these pressures have accentuated today. And then my presentation proceeded saying that there are two main aspects, the idea of development and culture of development, and luckily enough we posed questions during the conference, and one of these was, what is the meaning of internationalization of education? Is this connected to a mobility problem both of students and professors? Is this collaboration strategy amongst various universities? And on that day we had invited the Dean of Exec and Professor Ruke, who was a LIUC delegate to internationalization, and I want to steal too much of your time. This means that the idea of the culture of development and the idea of development is something that we find today on our table. As to the culture of development, I cannot reveal what we are writing in our strategic plan, but there is a passage that I already wrote and already shared with other working groups that refers to the growth of international activities and to the extension of the geographical reference. I'm a teacher of strategy, but this is what we are here to discuss. So we are talking about the past, the beautiful things that LIUC realized in the past, but also that there is now a new model with a different content, and what we used to say in the past was collaboration. There is still room for improvement in this field. And I close repeating what I said then. It's not a problem of a vision of development. The problem is to bring the organization towards this development. And quoting Norman, what are the main conditions? One is to foster a culture of growth, because today, given the current context, we are forced to foster a culture of growth, which is a huge endeavor, because if there is a demographic boom, financial markets are stable, the task is different. Today we have to promote a culture of growth at a time when we really would like to sit down and relax and wait for things to change without my intervention. And the second thing Norman said, to manage organization under sub-processes that affect the idea of development, such as internal and external communications, development of human resources, removal of hindrances to change, and creation of drivers. And I close thanking those who are here with us, Mrs. Gervasoni, Mrs. Angelucci, and our collaborators, because I believe that the very many years of the past and the last 8 or 10 months are an example of how a vision can be developed and built. Of course, there is still room for improvement, but you learn from your mistakes. And also this has to do with the development of drivers, because to mobilize energy towards service to students, developing research is the university task. And I'm certain that today's event will foster the culture of development, the vision of development. And once again, I'd like to thank you and to thank Mr. Comerio, because the board of directors has always supported us with the resources, because without those, no culture of development can be built. The strategic plan will move in this direction. We'll learn from today's event, and this is definitely also an opportunity to celebrate the 30th anniversary, and I will go back to my experience and to the past good management of the university. Now I leave the floor to Anna, Rafael, I don't know. Thank you very much. Together with Raffaele Angelucci, we'll be speaking about our past and our future. But given that here with us we have Mrs. Mirella Cerini, the mayor of Castellanza, I would ask them to take the floor. Also, Mark Thomas came from Grenoble, together with Federico, one alumni, to speak about the future of these universities, because always thanks to the board of directors' support, in 2022 we could award 2 international research prizes. Mr. Shashar, who is delegate for research, will dwell on these more in detail, because we felt we needed to award prizes for international research, and these prizes go to young people who have carried out empirical studies and developed international papers. So we selected them. The best thing is the money that will be transferred to you, but in the meantime, I would like the mayor to take the floor. Unfortunately, comments must be into a microphone because otherwise we cannot hear and we cannot translate. The prize for international research 2021, Valentina Minutiello. And also, please mention our 30th anniversary. I didn't want to steal room from you. Congratulations to this young student, and it is a great idea to support young people. This is another value that LIUC University has. My presence here bears witness to how the city of Castellanza is close to this university, because LIUC and Castellanza, mainly thanks to LIUC University's work, Castellanza can, in a way, cross its borders, can go well beyond its territorial borders and open up to an international dimension. So on my side, on behalf of the city, we cannot but support any activity the university will carry out. So Castellanza, the municipality, to support the university, because this is a way to allow the crossing of borders by the city. Mark Thomas, you are kindly invited here because you need to award a prize. Mark Thomas is the head of the international studies at the University of Grenoble, and
Really sorry. So I speak French, so I'm going to do my best to try. Donc, Fausto Pacico? Paciccio. Okay. And Nicolo Comerio. Okay. Congratulations. And you are? I'm Nicolo. Congratulations. And you must be Fausto. Okay. Congratulations as well. Well done.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Quindi due parole a Totò sui progetti di ricerca.
Sì. Ma brevissimamente.
very shortly a few words on the research projects. To the benefit of our colleagues, we rigorously selected the projects. We awarded a prize to junior profiles. We rewarded empirical studies based on non-Italian data, and we also rewarded works carried out in collaboration with foreign collaborators. For Valentina, professor from Spain, and in the other case, a professor from Japan. These people are working very well, and they are working on different themes. One, gender differences, and the other side, waste management. So this is the content of their research. Thank you very much. Okay, let's resume our agenda. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us. Quindi dicevo.
So, when I thought of this speech, I look behind myself. When we started speaking about international mobility in LIUC back in 1992, the first exchanges date back to 1993-94 with the LIUC University. And then in 1999-2000, exchange programs, 2002, 2003, the first double degree up to date, where we are today. And the figures are self-explanatory. Mobility started in LIUC, and since then LIUC has invested on this, kept investing on the international dimension of training and education as an integral part of the development and growth of our students.
In 2017, when we celebrated the Erasmus 30th anniversary, I had the honor of meeting Mrs. Sofia Corradi. For those of you, it's been nicknamed as Erasmus Mama. And when she told about her own experience, she said, and I quote, because it's worth it, "That year abroad changed me, and that was 1958. She was at Columbia University in New York City. I was a far more open person, definitely more with my feet on the ground, so I thought to give more opportunities to other people to do the same." So after so much time and after what has happened in terms of good and bad things, since we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, I was wondering whether it is still so and whether it's still worth it. So I went back to the European Commission study recently carried out on the Erasmus program. And with the numerous clues offered by the study, I chosen a couple by thinking that the results would be the same also for the students who are actually carrying out an experience outside the European borders. And this is our partner universities, by the way. It's still worth it, therefore. Yes, the study by the European Union shows the skills developed by Erasmus students and how they rated them. But what you see here on the slides is the problem-solving skills, the ability to reach decisions, and the ability for teamwork. Besides realizing, and this is part of the questionnaires of my students, that a fridge never fills by itself. So all these data, but in particular all these other data, makes us really think about the fact that today more than ever, going abroad is really interesting and worth it. During our lunch break, we will have a loop of videos sent by our incoming students, because our outstanding and outgoing are here, and therefore we have them here physically today. But these videos actually testify this impact. Now, all these things, all these thoughts, etc., made me think about another kind of thought, which is the contribution by internationalization processes, and in particular mobility processes in any form, to build up the higher Bologna process, which was launched in 1999 as an intergovernmental agreement, and among the targets encouraging free circulation of students and teachers, the development of social dimensions in terms of higher education, opening towards the outside collaboration, and top job seeking and ongoing learning by people with degrees. 47 countries shared into this, so we're well beyond the borders of the European Union, and the outcome is also coming from the work that we jointly carry out as universities, the relationships established between international colleagues and staff members dealing with international relations go well beyond a mere collaboration or professional exchange. At the end of my speech, I will have a short video being projected, and the rest of it will be broadcast during the rest of today. And my colleagues are really testifying that they do believe in it all, and that together we share the interest of building up something important for our students. And I'd say that this is a small break in terms of the big building of higher education pertains to all of us. So I thank all my colleagues, those present and those connected via the internet, and I close by thanking the team of our International Relations Department. They are making all this possible day in, day out. Cristina, Nicoletta, Irma, and Francesca, joined more recently Greta and Elisabetta and Chiara, the fresher, and she joined us only 8 days ago, and she probably is trying to realize in what kind of a hodgepodge she landed. Now, I conclude by looking back to our past and by asking myself the initial question, is it still worth it? Yes, with pride, yes. Now, we have a video. Here we are. Oh, no, actually, no. No. The video, we have a video with all the best wishes by all our partners.
On behalf of the International Relations team at MCI, we would like to thank you for our wonderful partnership, which has started incredible 20 years ago.
We have exchanged a lot of students, we have exchanged a lot of business emails, and we shared many experiences, from lost documents to the pandemic.
But of course, it was always great to work with you. So, LIUC, felice compleanno, buon anniversario.
Hello everybody, or as we would say in Bavaria, servus. Or I guess in Italian it would be ciao. My name is Bernd, I'm the head of the international office at Kempten University of Applied Sciences in Germany, and we are very proud to be a partner of LIUC Castellanza for 25 years. And now I guess it's time to celebrate.
Hello to our friends from LIUC. I'm Pascal Amey, Associate Director of International Relations at ESX School of Management. And I'm really happy to celebrate your anniversary virtually with you. During these 15 years, we have exchanged more than 200 students. In 2008, we decided to offer an opportunity to our students to get a double degree from the both universities. Thanks to this double degree, nearly 300 Italian and French students have obtained an Italian and French master degree.
Buongiorno, mi chiamo Cristina Greco e sono responsabile.
My name is Cristina Greco. I'm in charge with European relations from Università de Belgrano in Buenos Aires, and with great pleasure, I'm here to celebrate with you the 30th anniversary of the setting up of LIUC and 20 years of our first beginning of our double degree. Happy birthday and see you soon. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you most wholeheartedly also for having collected all these videos. It was a fantastic endeavor. We wanted to actually single it out. Today, during the round tables, the first one is about our future university. We have lots of partners with whom we hope to build up new projects together, and we're working on them as well. A short speech. Thank you, first of all, for being here, and hello to many people who are connected today with us. There's many of you, and I'm really pleased to have you with us. Where do we start from? Based on what Mrs. Angelucci was saying, first of all, thank to the Dean and the Board of Directors, because during this first year, we did lots of things, and we continue doing it thanks to our team, Emanuele Pizzurno, Immacolata Fragello, Margherita Mieto, who's helping me a lot because there's really a great deal of work to be carried out. But as I was saying, we're also working with all the other offices because we really want to cooperate more and more if we want to become more and more international, because from scratch, and Vittorio Gandini, who's here, will definitely remember it, we started with an international spirit. Why? Because this province of Varese is an international territory. Now, our many and important endeavors and companies and organizations are really the tip of the top of Italian organizations because they export all over the world, they have offices all over the world. We have an intercontinental airport close to where we are. We are one of the excellencies, and all these data come from my economist colleagues because I'm not an economist by background. I have a financial background, but our territory does have an international DNA. We are located in a rather strategic area within the framework of our production and manufacturing systems here in Italy. So we have lots and lots of enterprises where many alumni as well as students are working, and they are pivotal for the system of our university. And we have an evidence today because all our roundtables are all roundtables where speakers are alumni who chose to work for organizations or startups and work all over the world. To testify this, our DNA from scratch, we tried to become international. The first open lesson was by Franco Modigliani, the Nobel Prize laureate, and it was in 1991, and all those who had the opportunity and the pleasure to come to listen to him will certainly remember, because from scratch we tried to really dive deep into this international culture, which is the DNA of this territory, with strong roots, which is being testified by what our alumni are going to be telling you today, because I've been speaking to them recently. So our roots are important, but we have to look beyond our own local territory. And within our scientific steering committee that 30 years ago defined the academic pattern of LIUC, together with great Italian lecturers, we wanted from scratch to have 3 lecturers, some with some strong Italian DNA, who were the best of international academia at that time. And they left us with food for thought. And this is a point which prompted those who started to work here, not only to look at the territory, but also to try to teach something more to our students, that is, open up and carry out experiences such as the ones that we're offering here. Raffaella has already said it, but this is a slide that I really like. We have a number of flags where we have our major partners for all the projects that we have launched, and there's very many of them. When the Dean, Professor Visconti, asked me to give him a hand on this theme of internationalization, I didn't have a clue, although I've always been working here in terms of how many international relations and partners we have. And I believe that this is a big point of pride, as much as our 10 double degrees, and we're already studying to set up others. And they're really global, and I believe that at a time of complexity such as this one, we really need to do so, to really look around and see what is happening around us. And we have summer schools as well, which are a good tool for our students, but the challenge is to organize here, where we have a number of excellencies in some sectors, some summer schools, because international students do need to come to Italy to understand more about enterprises and companies. And, oh yes, we have a service of simultaneous translation as well today. And for us, this is very important to host students who do not only come from Italy, but from our part partners who come here to learn, but also to get acquainted with companies on our territory. So summer schools are another very important instrument. So these are our results. Raffaella already showed them. One thing that I want to single out is that 43% of our students carry out an international experience. All the others did not want to do it, otherwise we were ready to have them there. Maybe they had something else to do, or maybe some work to carry out here in Italy. But thanks to the work of our international office, we give opportunities to all our students for exchanges, and thanks to the huge work by our placement and career service offices, we have the opportunity, also thanks to the generosity of our alumni and entrepreneurs, to offer lots of stages abroad. And this is really good for our students. And therefore, also during the years of this pandemic, couple of years, to tell you the truth, we were able to have 300 students out and another 300 in, which was quite an endeavor. And then, thanks to the work of our career service office, we have indeed organized over the past few years, during the pandemic years as well, 163 international training courses with many, many relationships with international corporations, both abroad and in Italy. And this is also the outcome of the generosity of all the entrepreneurs who are working with us. And we are asking our students and our donors to do more. And this is something that we've always been asking. As you can see also during the round table, which we are going to organize in the afternoon, we cover all the world, and it's incredible, really. And also in terms of our research, we wanted to award prizes to young researchers because we're actually carrying out and making big efforts in order to have research carried out on an international level. We've already got lots of exchanges, and we hope we can do more and more with colleagues. We shared into a great number, and we continue, by the way, to do so, of international conferences. We shared into projects, and we had a good, positive set of rates, 1 out of 4, which is not really negligible, because this means having set up networks of colleagues with whom we can work, and we have 3 research centers with an international flair. One is dealing with finance for sustainable infrastructures through an alliance with the United Nations. Another one deals with family businesses, and we have the coordinators here, Valentina Adorotti and Salvatore Sciascia. Together with this lab, they have lots and lots of requests for international collaborations, and the Institute for Entrepreneurship and Competitiveness, led by Fred Alberti, they've all made up good relationship with Michael Porter's Institute, and we're trying really to do our best in terms of giving our young researchers international opportunities. And thanks to the work of our alumni, and in particular our chairman, Mr. Alberto Strani, but not only, we have launched the Stone Over the Drawback, and the LIUC has a chapter in London, and we went together with the Dean to open our own office, so to say, in the heart of London on March 11. There was a good meeting with the people who are working there, and they will get connected during the round table on finance, because many of them are into finance. But we don't stop here, and we want to gather an important number of alumni, and some of them will get connected with an Asia chapter led by Singapore, and then we will open up next year. This will be done by our alumni, but I like traveling, and I said there's no problem, I'll go with you, and we have another chapter in New York, etc. We have boys and girls there. I call them boys and girls, but in actuality they're gentlemen and ladies who work. These are all alumni who had wonderful careers, and they are our door openers everywhere. Then we will be back in London to meet with our people there, and a piece of research by LIUC will go there, so that we'll be able to discuss it on an international basis. In terms of our next 30 years, first of all, I don't know, because planning is difficult, and we hope we'll be able to do more and more interesting things, but we need everyone's commitment to do so. We have to have some more international alliances, and we're going to talk about it today as well. Mrs. Valentina Lazzarotti is very committed on PhD programs because we want them to become more and more international. We have scientific committees, exchanges with graduates, accreditations, etc. We shall talk about it today. Today, you have to be accredited. It's like having ISO in companies, you know, so we have to trade this trail in terms of accreditation. You need energy and a little money as well, but this is a path that we need to walk, and we have already begun doing so. We started with accreditation process, ESEB, but this has to become a 360-degree project. Let us hope that we can have some new double degrees, and we have this new way of having a blend of intensive programs, and Mrs. Raffaella Angelucci is dealing with all this because you have lots of large European projects in terms of collaboration, both physically and at a distance with other universities, but in particular what we're trying to do through a mapping that we have made of our partners, and not only to go look for those universities sharing their DNAs with ours. That is, some fragments of world very much connected with companies with different industries and our values as well, because we think that an alliance among similar entities is what really brings more about to our students. And in order for us to do so, we have to work on a team. When the rector, the dean, gave me the delegation on this matter, we've been working with our colleagues from the academia, with the directors of our schools, because in our academic programs, the international element is more and more emphasized. We have the so-called dream team, Immacolata, Margherita, and Emanuele, who are helping me to glue in with all the other offices, and not only the Office for International Relations, because it goes without saying, but we work with people who deal with research, PhD, etc. We have an international library, which is fantastic, and we're really working a lot, because today libraries are something very articulated and very important, because they have databases, and we have to make investments to be able to carry out research at international level. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do so. Having colleagues here means also offering a library with an international flair. Linguistics Center, which is fundamental. Michele Pugliese is actually helping us a lot, and communication as well, last but not least. The Career Service, with whom we are really working robustly on the internet, but also elsewhere. Also because this is a very important piece of our project with the alumni who are at the center of our work. And today, so far, we wanted to have only alumni as speakers, because we wanted to really pinpoint our best products, as I named them, and they are really our best flag. We continue to grow, following our own tradition, in an international way, so to say, in this beautiful city that hosted us from scratch with a great spirit of cooperation, I must admit.
And this is what we have achieved together with great effort, but also with great satisfaction. Thank you very much to you all. Fine, so now we are sharp on time. Mr. Righi will come from Corriere Economie. He has been following us over these years. We asked him to moderate the roundtables this morning, while Laura Galvani from Il Sole 24 Ore will be the moderator for the afternoon roundtable. The floor is yours. And our rector will be the discussant for the first roundtable. Can you all hear me? Good morning to you all. Thank you for being here with us, both in presence, in person and online. When tried to highlight what is special about LIUC University, a revolutionary aspect was underrated, because these rooms, the first roundtable has been scheduled for 11, has reconsidered the 15-minute delay, which is standard for universities. Here it is 15 minutes ahead of the time scheduled. The roundtable had to start at 11. We are starting at 11:15. Two roundtables will follow, and they have been divided based on the job that alumni perform. On one side, we have those who are in the academic field all over the world. On the other side, we have selected alumni working in companies, both fashion and finance. So 5 first roundtable, academic professions, and 6 in the second roundtable, starting in an hour or so. Sitting here with us, you see the first panelists. Stefano Cucuracchi was late, but he's here with us. What is the meaning of all this? Mr. Visconti, the rector, tried to highlight this when speaking about the next 30 years. Growth of international activities and enlargement of the reference geographical area for the university. I would start with the first aspects. I'll try and stand as much as I can so that you can all sit. Also because here we have Mrs. Gervasoni and back, so there could be some misunderstandings here. Beautiful handbag. Yes, definitely so. Anyway, Riccardo De Vita, Federico Pigna, Lara Stocchi, Lucia, Maria Piaciano and Stefano Cucuracchi are the panelists to this first roundtable. De Vita Pini are here with us in person. Thank you for attending. And the others are online, connected online. I would start leaving the floor to those who are here in person. Riccardo De Vita is the first one. Flash presentation on your life here as a student, and now tell us what you're doing in your professional life. My experience as a student, it was very long. I started attending 99 for a bachelor's degree. Then I appreciated my experience in LIUC, and I decided to start my PhD experience here at LIUC University. So I attended my PhD, and at the end, almost at the end of my PhD experience, I decided to go abroad. Since 2009, I am at the University of Greenwich, London. I also worked in private education field, but then I went back to the University of Greenwich. Now I am head of School for Business Association. Federico Pigni. Well, I enrolled in 94, I got my degree in 94, I spent another 6 years for my PhD, so I left the LIUC University at 2010. So besides being a proud product of LIUC, I'm almost 50, and my hair is gray, my beard is gray, so this means that I have been part of LIUC University for many years now. It was very easy to find internships at the time, and no need to send a CV. What I appreciate of LIUC is cross-sectional activities. So we wanted to develop people who could work in enterprises, who could become entrepreneurs, someone who is not just specialized in one industry. At the end of the day, I'm now, I started teaching at the Department of Engineering at LIUC University. Now I've become Dean of the Grenoble École de Management, 9,000 students, 180 people are members of my faculty, and 1,000 are intervenants, as they called in Grenoble. So I'm a full professor of IT systems. So I really would like LIUC University to provide me with such a background that allows me to manage one of the most important business schools in France. Lara Stocchi, can you hear us? Yes, yes, I'm screaming because you're on the other side of the world. Yes, here I am. What was your experience at LIUC University? What are you doing at the University of South Australia? Well, my experience in LIUC started back in 2003, Department of Economics. And then I got a master in marketing, and during my master years, I moved to an international exchange with the University of South Australia. Given that I felt at ease, I found a lot of opportunities there for my PhD. I started my PhD at University of South Australia. I also taught 5 years in the UK, and then I came back to Australia, my first love. 5 years at the University of Adelaide, and then now I am at USA, and I'm a senior lecturer in marketing. I've been teaching marketing for the past 10 years. What was your experience at LIUC? Very positive. I said it at the beginning. I had a degree in economics and also a master degree in marketing. From Australia, we go back to the UK. Maria Piaciano from the University Park Nottingham. Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm honored to be part of this day. I enrolled in 2015. I started a master in engineering, and then from 2017 to 2020, after my dissertation with Professor Rossi, I enrolled in a PhD on Industry 4.0, and since 2020 I've been collaborating with LIUC. And in 2021, I moved to the University of Park Nottingham, UK. At LIUC University, I had the opportunity to experience this internationalization activity. During my master degree, I was at the University of Flensburg for Erasmus, and during my PhD years, I went to Stuttgart, where I could delve into my research themes. So thank you. Let's come back to continental Europe. Stefano Kukuraki, Leiden, the Netherlands. Yes, hopefully you can hear me well, because I'm actually in the United States, in an isolated area, not in the Netherlands, you must be very tired. Yes, it is very early in the morning, so double thanks. Hopefully you cannot perceive it from my voice. I studied engineering, management engineering at LIUC University. From this experience, I had the opportunity to be abroad. I spent 2 years out of 5. I was in the UK, my last year of the 3-year degree, and I was Canada during my master years. So I profited from all these internationalization opportunities granted by the LIUC University, and this was one of the reasons why I was convinced to go and attend the LIUC University. Thanks to the placement office, I found an internship. I worked for a company thanks to the placement office, and then I addressed the topic of sustainability, relying on some of the tools that I had developed during my years at the Department of Engineering. I deal with industrial ecology, the assessment of environmental impact by human systems. I am associate professor of industrial ecology, and I'm also a dean in this master degree in this field. Before completing my, I completed my PhD at Leiden University. I also spent some time in the United States and Switzerland for a couple of years. I've been in the Netherlands. After this first tour, after you introduced yourself, I'd like Mr. Visconti sort of making some comments about these alumni. You were speaking about crossing borders, enlarging your territory, but it is difficult to go beyond this border. Actually, I am a discussant. I was supposed to speak only at the end, but given that you have extra 15 minutes, and I'll be rereading my academic year report. Economies of scale. Jokes aside, I really would like to thank everybody after this first round of table. Because given that I was not there when many of you started their experience at university, I met Maria Pia and Riccardo because I was there when he discussed his PhD dissertation 12 years ago. And Maria Pia, we also collaborated with Professor Rossi. The first thought I had listening to them is how fascinating our career has been, and your career has been. I had an international experience in Lugano, which is just 15 kilometers away from Varese. I woke up in the morning, watched the lake, but also went back home at night while their career has been across the world, not 15 kilometers away from one's birthplace. And the other aspect I grasped relates to the mobility of our career, of our professors. Brain drain is a topical issue. But definitely there are problems because we are producing valuable resources both for international universities and corporations. And there are also scientists from Italy working at NASA. So my comment is we should keep moving in this direction. We should be spreading our know-how, but we should be attracting resources. So not just exporting talented Italians, so we should attract resources from abroad. And the very first comment I can make, listening to these younger colleagues, is the fascination of a job, a profession that you can perform both in Italy and abroad, disseminating knowledge, spending time with young people, researching to produce knowledge. Given that university professors are always seen as people without rules, it is pleasure to acknowledge this valuable role. I would ask another question, and we start from Riccardo De Vita. People from my generation have always been very much fascinated by the British education system. In the light of Brexit, lived from inside. What can you tell us about this outstanding system of education in the UK, or are there problems? And after Brexit, how do you consider internationalization of university? I start from the second part of your question because it's easy to answer. Internationalization is a priority for English universities. It is a bit of a surprise. I remember I was in Italy when the referendum was organized in the UK, and I was shocked the following day when I heard the results, and universities were all against this result. Were not pleased with this result, but the willingness was there to keep internationalizing universities. Our purpose is to disseminate knowledge, therefore we cannot have physical borders, and all universities kept moving in the internationalization direction. They even strengthened their programs. They found alternative solutions. There is an alternative to Erasmus program, and my university immediately said, okay, fine, let's allocate resources. We'll keep funding international researchers and students irrespective of the state money we receive, because research is key to train new generations. So this definitely was a problem, but never stopped our internationalization agenda. As to the first part of the question, how is the education system in the UK? Beautiful, different. And what strikes me the most is that it is very business oriented. Education in the UK is an asset you can export. Universities are managed in a managerial manner. There are rankings of success, and this is positive because this is very efficient. Whether this is all positive or simple, no, I'm nostalgic of my Italian experience, but this tension to competition, permanent competition, can cause tensions, frictions, balance must be struck, but I always like thinking of Professor Niduk teaching in Bath. who says that it is good to have competing centers of excellence, but the global system must be stable and not as competitive, because everybody needs to have access to university education. What about internationalization? You were shocked after Brexit, but thousands of Italian students had to take stock of permits and bureaucracy. What is the situation today? How is it experienced? Definitely there were some bureaucratic problems. We had to understand the new processes to be complied with. But we are trying to mitigate these problems by adopting new programs. And irrespective of pandemic and the problem with mobility, very many universities also started promoting virtual exchanges, virtual experiences to keep promoting mobility through technology. Summer schools, Professor Gervasoni hinted at this, is definitely a valid model. We organized something together with LIUC University. It is an alternative model, both outgoing and incoming. So there are more resources to support students. I often recruit students in Italy. It is important to support our students because international students are a resource, different perspectives, a lot of enrichment. The Brits have a hard time in traveling, so we are keen on engaging students from London to Grenoble, from the UK to France. Professor Pigny, what is the French model of university education?
Well, that's difficult because the French pattern is different than ours. The Grandes Écoles is not the same as universities. My freshers are people who have already attended the Prépa schools, the prep schools. This weekend, I had 400 directors of the École de Prépa to celebrate the 40th anniversary. So there is a national, once you finished your high school, you have 2 years of prep schools. At the end, you have a ranking. Based upon this ranking, you can go into a good, a grand école or not. And there is a competition. Each student gets his trolley, goes around either the first 5 leading schools in Paris or the 6th, the 7th, and 8th. I belong to this second team because in Paris you cannot get in, and we're always above the ESEG, but the rationale is extremely selective. Students decide to attend a business school at the end of the higher school, and so the system is very captive from this particular point of view. And this system is going through a crisis because they're different. They lack an intrinsic motivation for business and administration. You see, this is the way the world goes. So this uncertainty, this feeling, for instance, makes students look for a meaning of what they're studying. So they're looking for other themes like sustainability. So we need to review our own ambitions as well as our objectives. I have a 5-year strategic plan that cost 32 million euros. Based on these targets, one of the major ones is internationalization and sustainability. It's innovation. All these elements are major currents that make the difference. Why is it that they're fundamental? Because the market is getting concentrated, the market becomes mature, and competition is international instead of normal. I'm quoting Christensen, and we are being attacked from below, and this goes for all universities when it comes to new innovative solutions, including machine that gives you a certificate. Google gives you certificates. Of course, I have a kind of a technological trip, but this means that we're not fighting with equal weapons, you know. We're actually fighting, in certain cases, with machines that can indeed have access to billions of euros. Well, that's why our industrial plan is worth 32 million euros. All these schools are over and beyond 100 million revenues per year. I am just 70, so I'm David among a number of Goliath, because over the next 4 years I have to find 40 millions. This is a French market. This leads to a different type of students, a global market which is strongly changing, and the patterns that we were familiar so far are now different. Internationalization has to be sustainable. We need it, but we have to invent new models where research is global. Out of the 5 last teachers I recruited, there's just 1 from France. 4 are coming from all over the world. So these are the business schools, and this is the market in which LIUC is coming into and must find a positioning. You see here Grenoble. You probably won't recognize it because you see Lyon, which is a little larger. But if you cross over the Alps, you also have Grenoble. And I keep saying to everyone, and this is one of the reasons of my presence here, is, as you can see, Grenoble is closer to Milan than Paris. And these are rationales that need to be investigated and exploited and have to be taken into consideration. This indeed recalls the so-called European corridors, as we used to say in the past. And I'm happy that Castellanza has strongly overcome the local dimension, because, as we used to say 10 years ago, the École de Commerce in Grenoble has become definitely international. And this is what all successful universities are bound to become. So the French process is very complex. What about Australia? Well, yes, good morning once more. Can you all hear me well? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here to be able to take the floor after my 2 colleagues who have given you a vision from the British and French systems. The Australian system is in between those 2, but with definitely lots of things in common with England rather than France. Having worked in England, as I was saying before, I can see all these parallels. And there's always this story about excellent international standards from the point of view of research, as well as from the point of view of our students, as well as the quality of our students, especially when it comes to their own ability to work in first-line companies or belonging to all industries, not only in Italy but also abroad. From the standpoint of internationalization, I believe that one of the major challenges for Australia is that of being able to be known internationally as, for instance, a source of research for values, achieving an international profile with students from all over the world. And this has been rather difficult often because of dynamics with the US. We have this very, very large island, which is always very far away, and you have to take a plane and fly for hours and hours. And with these 3 years approximately of pandemic, all this was made even more difficult and tougher. Internationalization took place in the Southern Pacific area, entertaining relationships with China. So many international students are coming from China. And with the deterioration of international relations between Australia and China, we have seen recently, in combination with the pandemic impact, a change of route, a deep change of route, I'd say. So we have internationalization and exchanges with India, with the Middle East as well as other areas in the world that are far more interested in knowing Australia better and look at Australia as an alternative versus the US when it comes to, for instance, easier migration, etc. This is something that I noted over the past few years, and this was one of the changes. Yet the geographical distance and all the challenges all the universities are faced with have been managed through innovation and technology. I'm pleased to hear my colleague from Grenoble, who has talked about LinkedIn, Google, and these new competitors for universities. They have a value added. They are extremely flexible. They learn on demand. They make technology available to everyone, and therefore also education is being made available to all. And this has made everyone enjoy a push and a need to reinvent oneself when it comes to technology. I'm talking for Australia, and pandemic actually gave a final go, seldom organically or in a sustainable way. But now we're confronted with an opposite challenge: how to balance off this rush to technology and a reduction of physical distance and the human factor. Now, the human factor, in my opinion, is something that we all realize has to be integrated back in, and we have not only to bear in mind internationalization from the point of view of research, but also from the point of view of what our students expect. We're about to finish our semester, and we had a meeting of all teachers today, and we were saying that whatever was brought about by the pandemic, use of technology, learning in distance, etc., have taken away from a human standpoint a contact and an interaction with lecturers in the classroom, which is essential if we want to create future opportunities to our students, to encourage them to explore, for instance, all the chances for careers outside their own country and their own borders. And this is something that I owe sincerely to LIUC. Without their support, without the support of my lecturers at LIUC, those people who worked at the international office, etc., I wouldn't be where I am now. Thank you for your wonderful words, but I wanted to point out another aspect which just emerged. We talked about these rather weird competitors, this Google people, this giant of technology. As Stock was saying, they're very lucky because they're extremely flexible when it comes to teaching on demand. I believe, and I would like to involve here our rector, our dean, that the physical experience and the total involvement in an environment which is different than the one where you grew up or where you lived over the past few years is fundamental and can mark a difference vis-a-vis an online technique, isn't it? Well, here I have to be sincere. When I discussed together with my colleagues in Lombardy, I'm being looked upon as being the most radical when I say that from September our students have to be back into our classrooms and full stop, that's it. And I go around, release interviews, etc. But undoubtedly we are being confronted with an issue in terms of education, and whatever we do here, we have to do in terms of strengthening our educational side. Also because, bad habits are just round the corner, so to say. We might have a student in the LIUC library following a lecture by another colleague in a classroom next to it, and this is no good. And we should set up a new balance, and we have lots of good solutions which we learned over the past few years, and we should not throw them away, but there is something good in innovation, but we should not give up our job as teachers, and this as a physical feature that needs to be highlighted. There is another theme, for instance, assessment at a distance, which we were forced to do. But if we accept that, well, then we shall no longer be lecturers. When it comes to teaching, of course, there's something good and something bad, and let's give value of whatever good has been achieved, but a classroom is a classroom anyway. I have a feeling there is a wave of laziness and which is not really good. You know, if you become marketing manager of a company, you cannot do it at a distance. You have to travel around and you have to get into supermarkets and you know, or work from your office. And I believe that I am a big supporter of physical experience. Of course, my colleagues, Professor Ravarini and the other members of the committee usually give me cues and pieces of advice, but we have to indeed find more traditional forms of teaching. Let's go back to England. Maria Piaciano, here I am. Right. Previously, Professor Riccardo De Vita told us all about how wonderful the British educational system is. I would like you to talk about what happens at LIUC, what happened to you at LIUC, and how this opened up an international career to you. I'm very grateful to LIUC for what I've done, for my international experience, and this allowed me to indeed overcome personal restrictions on the chance of carrying out certain experiences, because sometimes, you know, you fear what you're about to be doing. What I was taught is to become proactive, very practical. The fact that LIUC is connected to companies and territory and allows you to have a practical experience besides theory in the classroom. And this is something that enriches you as a lecturer. If you want to continue with your academic career, you can bring it into your classrooms and I believe this is a value. I believe this is something that a student can appreciate because it's connected to the outside world. On top of it, LIUC had already part of the, as part of the curriculum, some courses in English, and this allowed me to use material already written in English and be able to learn the jargon, so to say, which then I have perfected later on. And something that actually helped me was the backbone of research degree, which is called Collection of Papers, and that has to do with a dissertation. So I published from scratch. And so when I had interviews with other universities in Switzerland, in Ireland, and in England, I had 3 requests at the end, because compared to other candidates who were probably better than I was, I had numbers and I had publications that were very good because I was able to publish from scratch. And this is an opportunity which I have made the most of, but this is good because I found it within the university. So when it comes to research, and the fact that research is being possible from scratch. The international opening allowed me not to have any sort of preconceived ideas and the practical experience, to have the opportunity to work in the local companies, but we're very happy because over there you have companies that are branches of multinationals or excellencies in terms of different Italian industries, allowed me to already have access to a number of case studies.
And also the number of students in classrooms, heterogeneous classrooms made up by both Italians and foreign students for Erasmus exchanges. And this allowed me during my interview to express my ideas on these different diversity of students. And since the very beginning, I was engaged in different activities by my group as a PhD student, allowed me to get well integrated once I started working in the UK, because I was familiar, so to say, with the approach to different age ranges, different interests. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the Netherlands, going through the United States. Stefano Kukuraki, are you still with us? Yes, I am. What is the structure in the Netherlands at the university level, and what was your experience at LIUC? I start with the Dutch system. Very interesting were the hints provided by my colleagues. We are the opposite side of the North Sea, and with Brexit we were lucky enough to receive very many students who gave up going to the UK and came to the Netherlands because the Dutch government has been investing on classes that are multidisciplinary, very flexible in English, so our increase of students. So you had positive spin-offs from Brexit. Yes, from our perspective, yes, definitely. So a small country which is at the heart of Europe and very well connected, the effects have been very positive. The effects of Brexit, and this is both an opportunity and a challenge when you have to manage more students, because students have been increasing in numbers even during the pandemic. We had practical problems. Someone mentioned social aspects, aspects related with student interactions, but when there are large numbers of students moving to a city, and it is the city itself adjusting to this high number of students, increasing prices, so it becomes difficult sometimes for students to find accommodation because of these high prices. So as I said, there are both opportunities and challenges. Going back to your question as to my experience at LIUC University, the fact that I combined my experience at LIUC and abroad allowed me to move abroad for my profession, and my international experience and a search for an internationalized education system and sustainability brought me to the Netherlands, and being the dean of a master degree, I keep using teaching didactical tools whose functioning I learned at LIUC University. I keep stress testing solutions. From the perspective of internationalization, going back to what I said, in the Netherlands, we grasp very many opportunities because the demand from students increased. It has been increasing for the past 10 years since when I went there to work. and sustainability is definitely the major theme. And being in a multidisciplinary environment, we can look at further opportunities, such as the increase in the use of AI, data science, as applied to environmental sustainability. So we are finding opportunities of collaboration with other entities that are specialized in other industries, but which would want to make these industries more sustainable. We organize online classes whose approach is very global.
Dove il rettore Visconti.
Let's come back to Castellanza. Mr. Visconti has something to say. Well, I didn't wave that much. We are finding a good understanding. Yesterday, when meeting the panelists, I said it is a great opportunity for me to listen to this because there are plenty of cues. I prepared to say that if I listen and I fully understand the competitive dimension of this business, I can say that we could apply the same concept of corporate aggregation to universities, or the word repositioning that is true for British universities, or grasping opportunities, what Mr. Kukuraki said, they could grasp opportunities for growth after Brexit. So a university should be managed as a company, and LIUC University has been developing in this field, and we have been very successful at that. Corporate approaches like investment, talent attraction can be applied both in corporations and LIUC University. And I'm saying so within the framework of Italian universities, because Italian universities are mainly state universities with the money, citizens' money invested universities, and it has, this university system in Italy has both pluses and minuses, because the potential for internationalization is very low. We have sectors that have been defined 35 years ago. Dozens of committees have been organized, and the review of these mechanisms still has a long way to go, because these are fed by bureaucracy. So we experience a tension between the corporate dimension of the university and the ministerial bureaucratic dimension. And the danger, the risk we run is that the National Recovery and Resilience Fund will be flooding universities, but they won't help us in moving in the right direction, as this is true for foreign markets. And this is a theme I'm very sensitive to. We are a small university. We can go this way, but we must know this market. We must know labor demand. What is the labor demand? Because sometimes we are very slow in modifying and amending curricula. So the message I take from this second round of the table is the healthy competition in this business, and this business must be managed like a corporation, like a company. Our rector's words make us reflect upon that, because if the macro frame has been defined 35 years ago. There was no internet 35 years ago. Today we can't even go back to our homes without the internet. So this is another world, this is another universe, and the legacy of that experience you have to take stock on a daily basis. Mr. De Vita, please look ahead. What are future challenges, irrespective of the budget and the reconciliation between online and in-person teaching? What is the future of university in 10 years from now? This is the easiest question, and you addressed it to me. Universities must be focused on knowledge production, but achieving this in a different manner from different perspectives. The first dimension is what to do. Given the technological innovation all my colleagues mentioned, the risk we run is that knowledge, when disseminated in the classroom, is obsolete the following day. So we should be focusing on cross-sectional teachings such as flexibility, resilience, risk taking. So we should move from the focus on knowledge to focus on horizontal competencies, cross-sectional competencies. And second is when, and here I take inspiration from what Federico said, if there are providers giving out on-demand certifications, then universities must become competitive, providing shorter-term classes. A lot is being said about permanent education. In Singapore, for instance, they keep investing on education, and universities should not mandating these things to corporate academies. So what, when, and how? Like the rector, I believe that attending in person is key. Still, we should be leveraging technology, what we learned over the past 2 years, but personal relationships are very important. So a balance must be struck. Technology allows us to reach a new geographical markets, and reaching out to working people, online classes at night can allow people to attend new university classes. So we should be doing things differently. Professor Pigni, you shocked us by saying what is a Master in Business Administration for? And starting from your statement, what are the future CV? We should be stopping considering initial education different from permanent education. If we focus on competencies, because a curriculum is a set of competencies, a curriculum must be in line with the market demand that is brought about by the profiles of workers. I need a data scientist. What should be a data strategist or data scientist curriculum? What is an environmental engineer curriculum, or what should they know? This means that for education to be seen between what I learned at the beginning and what I have to learn on a permanent basis is key, because we need to be focused on our life, because this is what corporations ask for, because the digital transformation which is in place now is not something that could foresee 5 years ago. Now you must transform your resources. And who should be doing this? Executive education. Why shouldn't you use this possibility for a permanent education? So the fact that we are witnessing this change, this is a radical change. The state said we must have a permanent education. And on the other side, we have the labor ministry telling us this is the skill set that we need. This is what we should be doing. These are the profiles that France needs. Please give us competencies enough, and let's invest on each and every one of our workers, for these workers to be trained to develop new competencies. And this is the system in place in France. I reviewed my planning, my organization to produce competencies and skills. And allow me to add a few words. Let's not speak about the dichotomy between online teaching and teaching in person. This is not dichotomy. This is a phygital education. This is what we need. I'll mention a trivial example. How can you organize sexual harassment education? How can you organize a teaching on how to manage these things? You normally have an auditorium where there is a scene setting, and we discuss this. I can do that through virtual reality. How can you explain epilepsy or blindness? Should you, as a manager, manage these problems? You must use immersive environments. It could be Grenoble in Castellanza, it could be in person or online. Therefore, the teaching mode, the technology used becomes a means to achieve competence. What is the competence that you should be learning? So it is not a dichotomy that can help us. What can help us is the way in which technology can support the best possible learning. And this
requires us to get a different line of thoughts and different organization. I'll tell my colleagues, because then you have to work and sweat. The virtual campus that we're launching, which is worth 7.5 million euros, is not just thought for off and online, but for ongoing. I have some sections that are physical, others in a virtual world, and then 50-50 at a distance and presence. It depends on the target that I want to reach. So what about the future? Christensen, whom I mentioned before, says that if we are down low, we have to fly higher, which means that we should provide excellent services, but it's not just be radical on a typical model of the Anglo-Saxon or American business school like Harvard, where you have 5 students fantastically present and you do beautiful things with these 5 students. This goes against listening to enterprises, and this is not to be taken for granted, because this is one of the fundamental points. And the second is connected to the dimension of listening to the needs of society and students as well. This is a new world we're moving into. Professor Stocky. After all these comments, there's very little that I may add, and some important comments, the word phygital, and this concept of training, ongoing training, and rather provocative comments, but rather a snapshot spot on reality, but these are very new ideas. Yes, indeed. For instance, starting from the assumption that I teach and research on digital marketing, I understand what our colleague said about the fact that when my students, and I keep saying to them at the beginning of the course of digital marketing, when they go out from my class, there's always something new cropping up. But this idea of the present situation where we pushed and pushed to find technological as well as innovative solutions so that the digital and teaching at a distance may be adjusted, developed, and made more contemporary and pervasive than before the pandemic has to be reviewed within the framework, as we said before, of the human factor. And from my own standpoint, finding a balance between these two factors is certainly the biggest challenge for universities all over the world and for the education sector as a whole. We talked about what happens this year, but what about next year? Nobody knows. There's a great unbalance between different systems, the two different systems so far. We never thought that what happened may happen, and we found new solutions to be able to float, but now, so what from now on? From my own point of view, a solution is based upon entrepreneurial spirit, because entrepreneurial spirit is something that was being taught to us at LIUC, and that is knowledge, going hands in hands with the real world, and over and beyond your doing, and it has to become a basic guideline that has to be used to prepare new methodologies, to prepare new avenues, be it based on technology or not. So, in my opinion, if we look at the future, we should take all that into account. We were talking about the so-called skills across, that is, those skills that can be adjustable to different types of jobs and career, and this is my opinion, to be able to make the most of the flexibility from these innovations, and to talk about human factor and guidelines for our students and the future. Our students will have to be faced with challenges which cannot even imagine ourselves, and if we cannot anticipate those challenges, we cannot be able to prepare them for whatever is cropping up. Also, from the point of view of research, we will not be able to contribute to that flexibility between industry and university, and you need it from the point of view of managing all these unexpected challenges that we have had to face. Also, from the point of view of the Australian university where I work, you have to be ready. You have to have an external impact that is quantifiable, is exactly at the heart of this strategy. And continues to be part of our strategy. And if, as a researcher, I cannot prove that I have set up some collaborations with certain companies or industries, with local as well as international collaborators and projects that can be published from an academic point of view, but also can become matter of training to my students in order to prepare them for their jobs, which means indeed bringing money and resources inside the university. I will never be able to support my own role as well as my own duties. So thank you very much. Let's go back to England. Mrs. Maria Piaciano, in your previous comments, you said that you were lucky and you have published very early, and this helped us, or helped you rather, to have a win-win situation with your academic career, and you were able to, so to say, supersede others. Just very quickly, because we have just a bunch of minutes available. What about pieces of advice you may give to students? Grasp all opportunities, especially when it comes to teaching innovations. So invest in terms of training. We have at LIUC a nice lab where students can learn and test. Of course, I talked about my own experience when I was being interviewed by other universities. And this was a winning element because I proved I was able to teach in an environment which was not the typical one, and then to create a network that is a network of knowledge. So look for cooperations, collaboration with national as well as international partners, and investing in theories, investing in investigating, and do not stop to a theoretical, traditional topic. The future is made by combination, by different topics and strategy. And then you have to try to be curious and try to know as much as possible about other stuff, other things, etc. You have to be open. You have to be able to learn from different colleagues and situations. Now I am in a university with a campus in China and Malaysia as well. I would like to reconnect a little bit to what we said about the digital, the hybrid education, about how we are connected by platforms rather than being physical. Although there are negative aspects or bad habits, so to say, we have to bear in mind that if we were able to continue our collaborations and create new ones, it was thanks to that. We have 3 different campuses on 2 different continents. I found very positive to be able to make use of all these tools, because I was able to come to terms with different cultures, different methodologies, and I was able to learn from them. And I was able to continue also my teaching career at LIUC. And so my piece of advice to whoever actually approaches teaching, you have to become agile in terms of use these tools, understand their limits, of course, because, you know, I am a fan of technologies. I realize that, you know, my value added when I teach is also have a theoretical knowledge. You also have to have a practical knowledge, come to terms with technology, because you should be familiar with teaching innovations without being limited by geographical considerations. Teaching innovations from the point of view of creating infrastructures, allowing students to be in a safe environment and acquire experience based upon what is being taught in class. Theory hands in hands with technology, and so in a strong network from scratch. Mr. Kukuraki, or I just wanted to ask you that we have almost taken it for granted, but you're an expert in terms of sustainability and ecology. Sustainability is the most popular word being used over the past 24 months. What is the weight for the future? A very important weight, because we talked about knowing what serves the purpose of a company. So we have to take into consideration climate change and when it comes to, for instance, finding resources, etc., which matters to company and governments as well. So sustainability is not just a domain for theory, but this would be a domain for future engineers and those who are actually committed in teaching in the business schools. With our colleague, Mr. Pigni, we may have a conversation on this now and in the future, as well as the one that we have begun with the Dean at LIUC. So, instruments to analyze, instruments in the toolbox that have to be added on to those of the standard engineer. Why? Because we have to reconsider the skills that are now being requested by the various industries. And these are based on sustainability and the challenges that our planet is confronted with, is faced with. And we're talking about short term, which means the next 10 years.
L'Italia è un paese strano e I giornalisti.
Italy is a rather weird country, and if you like, I can entertain you for hours on this. But as I was saying before, sustainability is a word that has been used and misused over the past 24 months. Because then a gentleman started with some tanks and attacked Kyiv, and all of a sudden people said, who cares about sustainability? Let's get some coal out of Sardinia, dig it out from Sardinia, let's burn whatever we may. How much sustainability is sustainable? It is sustainable because it is an opportunity. The problems recently have to do with resilience and dependence on some resources. And when it comes to energy independence, you have to focus on other things, renewable energies or other source of energies. And a mix is important, and sustainability counts, and both in the short and medium terms. And otherwise the situation will worsen. So we don't have to be small-minded. We have to open up both in Italy and in Europe. Of course, from the standpoint of sustainability and how sustainable sustainability is, much remains to be done. We have to teach, we have to educate both citizens and students when it comes to what is important in terms of resilience and in terms of dependence and finding resources. There is something important to say. Companies do play a fundamental role. We have more than 100 companies in France, and we are engaged with a conference on climate in order to find business solutions to sustainability and the challenge that we have to actually count on if we want to save the planet. Grenoble does this. 100% 100% of my students are being trained on sustainability year in, year out. Sustainability is not simply an element and a matter that becomes important. It is a priority. There is no other priority. We have to train our people on sustainability. They have to be able to answer all these questions. Otherwise, you have the risk of greenwash, and because we do not know what are the good business questions to resolve all this. But we are business schools, because otherwise it's not just up to engineers to do that. The fact that LIUC is across is a strong point. A generative business model requires to put around the table the engineer, the law guy, the CSR guy, and being across is important, and we have to support all this and all these changes. Sustainability is an imperative requirement. It's not just an option.
Non la vediamo ma la sentiamo. Kukuraki è d'accordo.
Okay, Kukuraki says he agrees, and so to the rector. Well, now we're running late, and we are not a quarter of an hour earlier. But listen, I have also an advantage. I have the role of listening as well, so I should not give you answers. But thank you all for your comments first and foremost. Then I confess that I'm tempted to go back from the beginning of my speech. That is, we need an idea of development of university, our own, the one in Grenoble, the one in Greenwich, etc. And having a vision is not easy for an entrepreneur as well as for a university. We have to have some offers, research fields, business schools, growth of lecturers, etc. A university cannot be compared to a steel mill or a company manufacturing plastic. Well, that's why a culture of development and learning are a must, and we have to have mechanisms based on this. I feel the temptation to quote Harvard's rector, who used to say in 1992, I believe it was Mr. Derrick, has said, the world is changing so quickly that we're not in a position of giving you the latest piece of information on cybersecurity. We can teach you to learn the process whereby you can better understand cybersecurity. And this is really paramount, and this is something that deserves a further conversation, because if we continue to teach and learn, we realized that 5 years ago the situation was completely different compared to now. And given that I've been around for a while, my radical theories are the result of our grey hair. We are a country that becomes closer and closer to Tomasi di Lampedusa, and if I'm not doing that, they put me into a primordial world where the 7 hours are a credit, 8 hours are more, or 6 hours is not enough. The form that I send to the ministry has to bear so many items, etc., etc. Well, that's why sometimes I get very radical. I believe that in September we will be in contact with Mr. Pini, who will not come from Grenoble to here, or will be able to interact with an entrepreneur from China or here. I close by saying that we are being faced with a great challenge. So last week we had a good event on learning by our business school on continuous learning and learning by doing. And so we cannot draw a final conclusion today, Stefano, but the richness of your comments focuses on what what was being said by someone who said that there comes a time when you have the privilege of responsibility and you have to play your cards on that. And I believe that we're going to play down our cards on the privilege of responsibility. So thank you to Mr. Pigni, Piaciano, and Coccorati. This is like mentioning soccer players and a team of soccer players. But thank you very much indeed. We'll begin with the second round table shortly. Please stay with us. Stay tuned with us. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Li abbiamo collegati tutti i relatori. Montillo, Bocchio l'abbiamo recuperati, Gaia, Marco e Flavio.
Rapido cambio di...
Now we're changing hats and we're ready for the second round table. Upon opening, I told you that we have 11 testimonials. 5 of them we just heard, and now we have 2 here and 4 connected before we explored the world of academia, because this is a university training trainers and managers for the various industries, from fashion to finance. And here with me in presence at Castellanza, besides Professor Gervasoni, who is going to play the role of a discussant, Mrs. Gaia Meda, and Mrs. Gaia Meda works for Goldman Sachs, California, and Alberto Fasanotti, who works for Valentino here in Milan. And connected from all over the world, we have Natalino Mongillo, who works in London, and Luca Bocchio, and this is partner to Axel in London, Marco Nicita, who in London works for Revolut, and Flavio Stellini, who works from London for something that we're very familiar with, Intesa San Paolo. So good morning, and thank you for being with us.
Avete tutti una certa pratica con...
You have, therefore, great experience with the financial markets. I would immediately start with Gaia Meda, who works for Goldman Sachs. We're always very interested in these kinds of brands. How is the financial market evolved, given what happened on Friday and even yesterday? What is the situation like? Definitely over the past few months, the trend was not good. Given yesterday night's closure, even SP 500 closed with a drop in 3–4%. The market is a bearish market. This means that the trend has been minus 20% since the high, so investors are not very happy. What is foreseen is a low trend. Hopefully, Goldman Sachs performed well. We are more bullish than bearish as to future trends. Hopefully, over the next weeks, the market performance will be better than it has been. But I like Americans because they tell you what they think, smiling, we are optimists. This is a bearish market. It is going to be hard, but I'd like to specify that being Italian and working in the United States, I see the different approach, Europeans versus Americans. The American approach to the stock exchange or to financial market is a consumeristic kind. Americans and myself spend much more money, invest more in the economy, in the machine that makes the market run. That's why we are more optimistic than Europeans, because Europeans still prefer to save and keep their money in their pockets or below mattresses, so to say. Hopefully this will not last. Fasanotti, what do you think? Your money is under Valentino's mattress. Anyway, what is the relationship between corporations and investors? You work for an important brand. The designer is no longer part of your headcount, but so you're very open to international investors. Yes. Mr. Valentino, the designer, the founder, is no longer working for this company, but the relationship between the investor and the company, it cannot change, it will never change, because corporations develop strategies, expansion plans, development plans, and this is also true for universities. As you said, universities should be dealt with as corporations to support these plans, development plans. We need financial resources, own resources, or get the money from the market, and investors provide money in exchange for a return, and this will never change. What can change is that both corporations and investors find themselves in a world that keeps changing, in a market that changes, evolves, develops. So the relationship between corporations and investors is heavily impacted by what's going on in the world. You hinted at the fact that 35 years ago the internet was not there. Seemingly, we are moving out of these two tragic years when the pandemic hit both corporations and investors. Are facing disruptive situations, changing your approach to the business, your business model. And as a consequence, the relationship between investors and corporations must change. During the previous roundtable, a lot was said about sustainability, ESG, CSR. These are disruptive elements, and all the ESG and sustainability factors have become part of a corporation's business models, and financial institutions adjusted and adopted tools to interpret these factors, connecting investments with the ESG factors. So corporations on their side must get aligned with what's going on so that their companies are sustainable, looking after the environment, the community, etc. And in this manner, it should become more attractive for banks who are willing to invest on sustainable corporations, so much so that today the cost of some investment is related to KPIs, which are not just profits. I give 100, invest it in such a way that I get 10% out of the investment, but I give you 100, please invest it in a sustainable manner, which is consistent with market logic. And in doing so, you get discounts on the interest you must pay. So the relationship doesn't change, but it is the economic system that changes. I had a first-hand experience with banks that refused investments because not environment sound. Fashion industry is polluting. Handbags are made of leather. Leather comes from hide, so we are looking for alternative fabrics. And to look for alternative fabrics, we need new technologies, hence we need a new investment. And in my opinion, investors, generally speaking, are more interested in financing these kinds of projects rather than standard development projects which are not related to ESG factors. So banks invest on companies when they are compliant with the ESG standards. I am here I represent a renowned brand. Banks rather associate themselves with brands that are sustainable. Meda Fasanotti, please wait here. We'll hear from Mongillo Natalino. EOS Investments, are you still there? Yes, I am. From your perspective, how will the private capital market evolve? Even the private capital market is going through huge transformations, mainly due to the pandemic on one side, but also to the macroeconomic challenges that we are experiencing, such as the rise in interest rates and inflation. And we can also consider this from this perspective. The various industries had to calibrate themselves again. Investment funds are looking for pandemic resilient sectors that are not subject to fluctuations. In the case of a pandemic, for instance, IT, high-tech, deals there accounted for more than 1/3 of the total volume of transactions that took place. Or new industries, retail, travel, hospitality, universe, distressed industries, and investors see great opportunities in investing in these distressed industries, and also the kinds of products. Besides standard tools such as private equity, new products have been developed, such as non-financing investment, or new products that grant greater liquidity to funds, investors, and corporations, because these markets are also featured by great volatility. Managers are focusing on new themes. For instance, the willingness is there to get differentiation amongst the various products being provided, because the supply has increased. So we are witnessing to the growth of thematic funds. For instance, we are presently investing in 2 funds, one on renewables, newly built plants that need no subsidies, and they are an alternative to fossil fuels. Let's try and give an alternative to people if we manage to do so. And then private equity focusing on companies whose potential of sustainability is very high. Sustainability not as a tool for greenwashing, but practical actions to be carried out by companies you invest on, and also in terms of the manager's mind frame. Thank you. In London, we also have Luca Bocchio. Good morning. He's partner of Accel. Accel is a US-based company that deals with venture capital, $10 billion US dollars invested, and invested in Spotify, Globebox, and Facebook. Not bad. My question, Luca, is the following. Professor De Vita spoke about Brexit. Did Brexit impact your operations? No. Honestly speaking, I would say no. London is our basis for the European market. We invest across Europe and Israel. We have been doing so through London for the past 20 years. Brexit did not impact our business. We are a niche in the private capital market, and technology, as we learned over the past few decades, has no limit. So you can invest from nowhere to anywhere else. London is our headquarters in London, and we invest into all other European countries. So we are not considering any other country. Some competitors have moved from London after Brexit. Yes, very true. In the more traditional sectors of finance, this inevitably had to happen because unless you're present on the physical market, you have no strategic relevance. But in my business, I keep traveling across Europe, I keep investing across Europe, but we are still happy with our headquarters in London because the talent available in London is much higher than across the rest of the world. We attract talents from all over the world. Marco Nicita, London, works for Levolut Limited. He deals with cryptocurrencies, and this is the focus of plenty of attention. What is the future of fintechs? Your business corrodes the traditional banking market. It is a highly impactful business, yours. Well, fintech are contributing changing the financial context in different areas, in my opinion. One is the user experience, the second, the democratization of finance. As to the user experience, fintech contributes in streamlining, personalizing products, simplification of interfaces, of processes is key. Removing various steps in some processes. Customers can open an account, can get money in a very simple manner. As to user interface, given that fintech creates products from scratch, it can focus on the best way to present their products to customers. And this is a different approach with respect to traditional banks because they often have to integrate these products to their existing legacy systems, so more difficult for them. As to product customization, fintech often focus on data. Everything is being measured, optimized, and this is also true for products that are then provided to customers. Thanks to the thousands of data available to fintech, you can offer customized products, better meeting customers' needs. And then as to the second aspect, democratization of finance, fintechs are giving their contribution to two areas. One is the increase in choice, and second, cost cutting. Today, in order to have access to financial products, you just need a smartphone with an internet connection, and this is not true for other kinds of services, but still in finance, you can do it. As to the cost-cutting activity, cost reduction services are least expensive. Suffice to think of interest rates, current accounts, trading of shares. For instance, a few years ago, if we wanted to buy local currency when traveling, we had to go to the bank. Hopefully they had that currency, and the exchange rate was calculated on the spot. Today, you download the app, select the currency, convert it, and with exchange rate which is transparent, you can spend that money in the country of destination. You save time and you also save money. As to the second part of your question, the development of Fintechs, what is their orientation? There are two main areas that Fintech are touching upon. One is AI and the other one is blockchain. In AI, the use of data is the focus of very many business models for Fintech. This will keep developing thanks to AI models that become more accurate and more sophisticated. In the field of blockchains, in my opinion, this technology will impact very many industries, including the financial one. Access to financial services can be revolutionized, or the elimination of third parties, digital identities. These are but some of the areas that will be impacted by blockchain and also radically changed. A very fast appealing aspect with this technology is that this is in the open air. Developers can access products developed by others, can enhance them, can develop new products, and this allows to improve interactions with respect to traditional models. If we make a comparison, blockchain technologies today are, when the internet was, when there were 56K modem, I realized that this is not clear to students, but very clear to older people. I have a question. In Revolut, you deal mainly with cryptocurrencies. Aren't they a risk? Aren't they a bet? Because faced with a very strong technology like the one you mentioned, the blockchain, derivatives are bets. There are people being hurt. Nobody doubts blockchain values. But then there is some doubt on the development potential of what you called decentralized finance. Well, the risk is always there when you invest in cryptocurrencies, because our recommendation and everybody's recommendation is that you should be investing in cryptocurrencies, what the amount you can run risks for. The volatility in cryptocurrencies is much higher than in traditional products or markets. But this will be limited over time. And when we think of cryptocurrencies, if I'm not wrong, there are 18,000 crypto tokens available in the market, a huge number. What we should be careful about is projects that are low standing, with a good track record. If we talk about Bitcoins and Ethereum, these are the strongest cryptocurrencies. They are more stable, they are safer than others, which are projects launched as speculations. In London, we also have Fabio Stellini, Managing Director of Intesa Sanpaolo Corp. Hello. You work for a very traditional bank. I do not know whether you heard what Mr. Nicita said. I would be worried if I were you. What do you think about the development of these payment systems which are alternative? What do you think about decentralized finance? You fainted. We can't hear your voice. You're muted. Still, you're muted. We cannot hear your voice.
Vediamo se... Vederla la vediamo.
We can see you, but we cannot hear you. Oddly enough.
No, non ancora. Non la sentiamo ancora.
We can read your mouth. Just 1 minute. Okay, fine.
Siamo fiduciosi.
We are trustful that you can manage. Now you're frozen.
Allora, mentre cerchiamo con la regia di...
While we try and re-establish the connection with Mr. Stellini, let's come back here in presence. Mida. This is a virtual world. Cryptocurrencies are very virtual. Revolut payment systems is disruptive, but there are some risks. Yes, definitely. So in the United States, they are much keener to adopting something new. Many of our investments are on cryptocurrencies. A lot of young people have built portfolios mainly made up by cryptocurrencies. In the United States, we are much ahead than Europe. In Europe, we are more reluctant to test something we know very little about, not knowing the story of some things. Cryptocurrencies haven't got a long-standing story, so we do not know how the market will react. Now, cryptocurrencies will react to the market. This is the difference between two countries. Has this to do with the culture, a different vision? Yes, definitely so. In my opinion, also values differ. At this university, during my university career, I could see that Europeans want to be safe about their money, their investment, while in the United States they focus more on spending now, will be thinking about the future at a later stage. Debt, for instance, in Europe, in Italy, people hate debt, hate borrowing money. You keep away from debt, while in the United States, even people like me get borrowings for $100,000, and this is nonsense to me, because you have to work for another 10 years to be able to pay back these mortgages, and the same is true for homes. People buy homes through a mortgage, but not for the whole amount, while in the United States you just pay $50,000 as a down payment, and the $500,000 is a mortgage for 30 years. If you must pay your home until when you're 60, that's not a good idea to me. So these are extremes. But for cultural reasons, so personal reasons, personal lifestyle reasons, This is a standard procedure in the United States. You are very young, but you managed to work for one of the most important banks in the world. Congratulations. What are the skills that a LIUC university student should develop if he or she wants to be hired by Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan?
Dovrebbe avere.
Allora, ci tengo a precisare prima di tutto che ognuno...
I'd like to specify that everybody's career is different. One shouldn't necessarily imitate what I do or shall imitate someone else. Decisions must be taken individually. One should do what he or she thinks more in line with one's personality. The skills that a young professional should have after university, in my opinion, should be many, because when you apply for jobs, there is a list of skills one should possess. But in my opinion, it is much better to have just a couple where you're great at, and then you can adjust your skills to the various professions. One should leverage on one's skills instead of trying to cover all the skills that are requested by the application. Skill I leveraged on, which is key to me, is communication skills, because it allows you to relate with the people at any age level, in any industry, and this skill also allows you to develop a network outside your personal knowledge, and this is useful for your profession. An international network of relationships is also important. After the communication skills, I would say teamworking skills, given this time in history and given the past 2 years with the pandemic, it is important to be able to work in team with other people. Together with this, you must adjust, you must become resilient and flexible. This is something that is very much requested by company, and you should be capable of working effectively in any kind of environment, in any kind of context and situations. During the past 2 years, we all had to change and adjust our pace, our daily routines, so to be able to adjust and perform one's tasks from home is key and can make a difference. Fasanotti. Mrs. Meda highlighted how important resilience is. You are a CFO of a very important company whose market is the world, recognized anywhere. You are a CFO, you deal with financial matters. How is your world changing? It is drastically changing, because the role of CFOs in companies, so better CFOs have started adopting changes, and they are doing it right now. Their role and skills have radically changed, because in the past CFOs were considered as the accountant of the company, the custodian of financial data, and that was it. Now, the CFO has become a more strategic figure. CFOs, as I can tell from the companies I work for, has become the right arm for a CEO. He or she must support CEOs in their strategic decisions. So CFOs must know about taxes, accounting, treasury, cost control, etc. CFOs also must be equipped with the strategic and leadership skills that were not requested from him before. So CFOs must understand what is the development strategy the CEO has. He must understand what are the risks related to CEOs' decisions, should alert CEOs if there is any risk, should put in place procedures to reduce the risks for the company, and to see the glass empty full, should understand how to leverage on certain strategic decisions that the CEO will take, and leveraging on thousands of new technologies available. CFOs should have a horizontal approach rather than a vertical one. Yes, very horizontal, and this also should be very forward-looking. He should be looking at the future more than the past. Before he or she looked at the past performance of the company and then waited and not worrying about the future performance, and now the past performance should have the least impact, because this is merely the foundation for future performance. Various systems are available. These were mentioned by the university professors you interviewed. That there are technologies that help to close the books, the ledgers very early, so that based on certain data you can project towards the future. So this is a more strategic CFO, closer to CEOs, number two of the company, that will match traditional skills with the skills in business administration, in risk management, and this was not true in the past. And technologies must be known. CFOs and financial teams should move from a transactional approach to a process logic. There are robots also in finance dealing with transactions. So the human resources in the finance department, from the CFO to standard employees, should be managing processes which generate data. How data is generated is something that doesn't concern us.
Stellini ha ritrovato.
Let's go back to London. Flavio Stellini is now connected. Yes, we made it eventually. Here I am. Yes, we see you and we hear you now. Just to answer the first question, the technology by Impresa San Paolo has not just to do with crypto and computer, because I was using this computer by Intesa San Paolo, and because of crypto formulae, it wasn't working. Okay. I spare you criticisms in terms, but apart from joking, well, thank you very much for your invitation. It's a great pleasure. I'm not in London, I am in Johannesburg, and because of a few things that have to do with also looking for technology, looking for development and evolution that the bank is going through, because we probably at Intesa San Paolo are still a universal bank, because we have whatever is part of the spectrum of financial services, and we see that from bank to investor, etc., I should actually try to be at 360 degree. And when it comes to technology, we have to acknowledge that many operators have gone through impressive evolution. When you talk about technology, and we have heard it from our colleagues as well, America becomes the driver. Some people may say that there are other countries as well, because China is a strong competitor, but I believe that most technologies came from America, although the web has been created in the UK. But we can see that as a bank, we are an Italian bank, which clearly developed very, very quickly over the past 10 years or so, in particular, by, resorting to a new horizon and a big theme, which is internationalization. In other words, our bank has invested very aggressively in trying to open up new avenues, which we needed to, open, because in Italy we were going through a kind of a shrinking of our financial industry, because we were subject to the pressure of public debt and subject to the fact that we actually got to a cap where there was no longer growth. Our bank had to go through a new process. I'm not using the word reinventing because it's out of our scope, but we had to make efforts to take technology, innovation, and international experience also in terms of product, because our leadership of the big American companies, British companies, etc., and some leaders in Europe, for instance, PPE, or what used to be Deutsche Bank, but also ING, etc. In the various European countries, we had banks that were actually having important accelerators. Also from the strategic plan that has been submitted to Mr. Messina, our managing director, are actually making step forwards along this direction. And we are going to have a web bank, a digital bank, and this will become Easy Bank, right? Easy Bank, exactly. But written E-A-Z-Y. I mean, anyhow, I deal with investment bank, and I follow with a great deal of interest innovation as well, because we work closely with our innovation center in Turin, because whenever possible and wherever it is possible, we want to be close to the investors community and all those who might be interested in growing in this theme as well. And within our transactional banking structure, we made blockchain a fundamental theme, and there was indeed a change in terms of our way of supporting large companies internationally, because when a bank has to grow also at international level, we should not just be able to lend money to a certain entity or country, but the bank has to be in a position of moving all those funds according to rules and regulations which are stricter and stricter, and I don't want to open up this theme. Maybe I leave it up to others to comment on that. I'd like to hear from the other panelists what they think about the new regulations, that is, compliance in particular, because it terrifies us all. On a certain point of view, you have weakness, but also a capital T, because within our industry, there's also a growth under this respect, because there's a big problem. It was enough for somebody to move around some tanks and the financial markets, but the world, globalization itself, the trends that led to this wonderful growth, because look at the indexes up to November, we were up to the top, unprecedented results, and we, IMI, our business bank, we were just talking about pandemic, and the only point was, are we out of it or not yet out of it? We had the historical record, well, thanks to financial markets on the global market. We said this pull market actually dragged everyone towards new horizons, but not important in terms of growth as well as a famous support, because we had tanks, but the first tank was really inflation, which indeed caused the QE ending, which is something that in the past was really the true driver of that fabulous growth of financial markets in the world. Because NASDAQ or the results, etc., when they had those big growths, we were all thinking about the cause, and we were discussing, we were having conversations on the cause, etc. And this famous concept of investing was not just in the hands of our colleagues in the private equity or sovereign funds or pension funds, which today are the engines of the growth of the investments of the contemporary time. Those machines never stopped because they fear nothing, also because they can live with returns that are lower compared to what is more natural for private equity or hedge funds investors. But fundamentally, the interests that are now crushing the markets due to this inflationary effect, and I'm saying it because I live in London, inflation is true, and it's booming and will cause important damages. So technologies are important, all the themes are important, but the trend in the financial markets are rather worrisome. They're not just positive trends where we have sustainability technology to support it, and the growth of this so-called Fintech. And Fintech will have in 20 years from now as a target a retail bank with no longer branches, no more infrastructures as they have now. Commercial banks will change, and also investments will be indeed guided by themes which are artificial intelligence, etc., where if you issue a bond or an IPO will be guided more by technology than just people like me, sitting around a table and talking about their equity story. Maybe we'll do it behind the scenes, but this is the technology, the current technology. So from Johannesburg to London, Natalino Bongillo, would you like to say something about the stone being thrown into the pond by your colleague? Well, for sure, there's a great deal of change, also structurally, in the world of compliance, and with an effect which is rather exponential due to Brexit. Also, the business of fund management has no longer got a European passport. and therefore England is now outside Europe, and therefore we had to all create another point of entry into Europe now, and in order to be able to carry out our jobs. Now, as I was saying before, these were years of change, both from the point of view of funds and from the point of view of the companies where funds must invest. So the funds are really focused on post-pandemic themes, that is inflation and the increased interest rates. So after very positive years in terms of gathering, now we have the feeling that we're all kind of looking at each other and are a little more careful in terms of acquisitions, because on the one hand, you have inflation increase, costs increase, and therefore lower margins in the companies. On the other hand, we have typical products that thanks to banking, that is leverage payout, etc., or very top levers that we have seen over the past few years are becoming less attractive because of cost improvements, and therefore we have to be a little more careful. There is a very interesting piece of data over the past 10 years. 50% of value creation was coming from the expansion of the multiple, because the market grew, etc., and thanks to leverage, you would get yields without creating growth throughout the company. Now you have to focus on margins that are sustainable within the company and that are potentially to be sold. And from the point of view of organizations, the market is also different. Why is it that I focus on organizations? Because, as you have said, European, Italian, small to medium-sized companies are the engine for the economy, so there is a great deal of attention when there is volatility and recession in the area, and therefore we have to help them and support them. Today, the challenges may be cost increase, and then resignation. We talked about it in the first semester, and it's going on. So it's always increasingly difficult to find labor force, and then digital technology requiring capital investments, huge ones at least. And for sure, funds have a very important and meaningful panel as much as all the other instruments, because they can support the company to overcome these challenges, well, thanks to capitals, long-term networks, headhunters, etc., or opening up new relationships around the world to help decrease costs, especially those of raw materials. So these are the important challenges on both sides, but they are creating important opportunities. So last comment by Luca Bocchio. Please, a statement and a piece of advice, as we did before with Gaia. So, what did you learn from LIUC? And the piece of advice is, what are the skills that can be universally spent? Well, what I've learned and the value added by LIUC, on the one hand, I would say versatility in all classes. Also from the point of view of engineering, I was able to attend a course of economics thanks to Professor Gervasoni and others. So I was able to fine-tune a more ad hoc training, and therefore I felt privileged if I compare myself to friends and colleagues. And this on one hand. On the other hand, a feeling of entrepreneurship. Ever since I began studying at LIUC, I had the chance of grasping the concept of versatility, as my colleague was pointing out before. That is, look for the opportunities that I most liked through stages, international opportunities, specific grants, etc. This was definitely an advantage. And if I really think about my own background and my professional career, a piece of advice I can give young people or students at LIUC is always try to explore making as many stages as possible, as many personal and how many opportunities you have based on what you like. In Italy, we are running a little late because we usually concentrate on the job that we want to do upon getting our degree, and I find it wrong. You have to try to test as early as possible and maybe go less on holiday in the summer and have one stage more on your CV and have more international experience. The sooner the better, because your personal and professional CV will definitely benefit from it. So thank you all, and before actually saying goodbye, we give Professor Gervasoni the floor for the conclusions. Probably she was looking for non-comment, but I would go on holiday, I must admit, but it was very clear, less holiday and more work. So first of all, I really wanted to thank all the people who are present here and those who are connected. We go to London and will visit you on the 12th and 13th. The Dean, myself, and all the alumni will be in London, and so we shall see you and have a drink together, because I have to say I'm very proud of you, because I never taught you anything about what you're doing, and you were very good in terms of building up your skills, building up your future, fantastic jobs, and therefore I believe that our task is, as the rector was saying before, is listening and tell you about your experience and teach is fundamental, but eventually there are some fundamental concepts that, you know, whether you're into venture capital, private capital, asset management, CFO, whatever, are useful. Some fundamentals are good in all topics.
But I believe it is very important to keep providing you with some things such as great curiosity, great excitement, enthusiasm. We should be conveying to you the passion for hard work. You need a lot of engagement, and one should always questioning oneself. While the financial markets are becoming more and more complicated, we should be willing to question ourselves, to learn more, to grasp signals coming from the market so that one can improve what one does. So thank you very much for your witnesses, because we chose a very beautiful job. We all do with great passion. I'm referring to university professors. Also because when we see these results, we are very happy we nurtured this talent, and hopefully we can work at our best in doing so. So thank you very much. Please don't leave now. because now we have a contribution from New York. Yes, during the break, the greetings from our alumni and our partners will be in loop, but now we get the contribution from New York. Stevens, we can show the video. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Gregory Prastakos, and I'm the Dean of the Business School here at Stevens Institute of Technology. I'm very happy to be talking to you today. Stevens and LIUC Castellanza started a collaboration 5 years ago through research periods spent by your faculty here in the US. During these residencies, the idea of developing academic programs together was born. And in 2019, we held here in Hoboken the first edition of the Finance Week Summer School. It was an astounding success that left us impressed by the quality of the students and happy to have the opportunity of working with them. Despite a 2-year hiatus due to the COVID-19, the second edition is scheduled for this June in an extended 2 weeks format, and we're excited to host 20 brilliant students that will gain much sought-after skills in Python coding and data analysis on Bloomberg, essential skills for every finance professional today. The first Finance Week has, however, also been instrumental to the development of a deeper and more permanent relationship between our two institutions. The dual degrees in finance and financial analytics that will start with the first cohort of students from your school this coming September. Stevens is a leader in these areas. We have deep connection with the leading firms in Wall Street. We have developed multiple programs and courses. We've been awarded from the National Science Foundation of the US the grant to develop the first ever research center to advance financial technologies, Fintech. And we have many alums working in the top financial companies in the area. The dual degrees are unique opportunities to learn advanced skills, obtain a 3-year opportunity to work in the US, and most importantly, learn and experience from the diversity and richness of cultures and people of Stevens. In sending this message to you to join your celebration for the 30th anniversary of your school, I express my strong belief that the fruitful collaboration that we started 5 years ago will be cemented by many years of continued and ever more profound collaboration. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. Please contact me if you have any further questions. I look forward to welcoming the students and the faculty who will be visiting us this summer, and welcoming the students who will be joining our dual degree program. Thank you.
Grazie, professor.
Thank you, Professor Prastak, Stevens School of Business. Thank you to Gaia Meda, Anna Gervasoni, Alberto Fasanotti, Natalino Mongili, Luca Bocchio, Marco Cinicita, Fabio Stellini. Thank you to all of you, to all those who are connected online for the morning. There is a session in the afternoon that will start in 2 hours' time. It will start at 3 p.m. Time flies when you're having fun. Thank you very much. Thank you.